The Conjuring, one of the most watched horror films of all time with over $400 million grossed worldwide. But what is really scary is not the movie itself, but rather the real-life events that inspired it. In this video, I am going to tell you the story behind The Conjuring. So in the early 70s, there was a series of unexplained events in a small town in Rhode Island. Lorraine and Ed Warren were a married couple who had worked together as paranormal investigators for years. They had investigated many haunted houses and locations by then and were very experienced in the field. One day they were contacted by a desperate woman named Caroline Perrin. Her family had recently moved into an old farmhouse at 1030 Round Top Road in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The house was enormous, built in 1638, and had been in Caroline's family for generations. She said that ever since she and her 4 daughters moved in, strange things had been happening. At first, it was just little things like shaking beds, flickering lights and doors opening and closing on their own. But then more sinister things started to happen. She said that sometimes, when she would walk past a mirror, she would see the ghastly apparition of an emaciated old woman staring back at her. And if she turned around, the apparition would vanish. And in the reflection, she would see her daughters shaking and screaming in terror. She also said that they had found scratches and other marks on their bodies that they could unexplain. And sometimes when they were asleep, they would wake up to the sound of disembodied voices whispering right next to their ears. Caroline also told the Warrens that these events were getting progressively worse. One night, she and her daughters were eating dinner when suddenly the food on their plates began to levitate. Then they watched in horror as the plates spun around the room before crashing to the floor. Caroline said she knew it was time to call in the professionals. So she called the Warrens. When the Warrens arrived at the Perrin family home, they could feel the presence of evil as soon as they stepped inside. The Warrens concluded that the house was haunted by the ghost of Bathsheba Sherman, an evil witch who lived in the house in the 1800s. According to local legend, Sherman was a cruel and abusive woman who tortured her slaves and even killed one of them. After her death, her soul remained trapped in the house, and she took out her rage on whoever lived there. The Warrens tried to perform an exorcism of the house, but it didn't work. And soon they realized they were dealing with something much more powerful than they had ever encountered before. Things started to get crazy. One time they were investigating in the house. They heard chains dragging metal moans, and then they saw the ghost of a man dragging himself closer and closer to them. They ran out of the house as fast as they could and didn't stop running until they were miles away. They eventually managed to trap the spirit of the witch in the basement and performed a final exorcism. But as they were leaving the house, Lorraine Warren turned back to take one last look and saw the ghost of the witch standing in the doorway, her eyes burning with hatred. They both knew that they would never be safe from Bathsheba Sherman and her restless spirits. Soon after the Warrens left, the Perrin family began to experience even more paranormal activity. One day, young April Perron was playing in the attic when she came across an old trunk. When she opened it, she saw a pair of children's shoes. She put them on, not realizing that they belonged to 2 children who had died in the house decades ago. As soon as she put the shoes on, the spirits of the children began to possess her. They made her run around the house screaming and growling. She could feel their tiny hands grabbing at her legs and their cold breath on her neck. Then one night, Carolyn was awoken in the middle of the night by the sound of her daughter screaming for help. She rushed to April's room and found her thrashing around in her bed, her eyes wide with terror. "Get them off me," she screamed. "They're trying to pull me down." Caroline could feel the presence of the demons growing stronger with each passing moment, and she knew that if she didn't do something quickly, her daughter would be lost to them forever. She called out to Lorraine Warren for help, but she was too scared to stay in the house long enough to wait for her. Caroline knew she had only one option left. She would have to perform an exorcism herself. She began to pray over her daughter, asking God to deliver her from evil. At first, the demons fought back, scratching and biting her as they tried to keep their hold on her. But slowly, they began to weaken. As the sun rose, the demons fled, and April's body went limp. Caroline knew that the exorcism had worked, but she was exhausted and afraid. What if the demons came back? What if they possessed one of her other daughters? She couldn't risk it. She packed up the family and they fled the house. From that day forward, the Perrin family never went back to the house on Round Top Road. They changed their names and moved away, hoping that the demons wouldn't find them. But the demons were persistent. They followed the Perron family all over the country, haunting their dreams and whispering to them in the dead of night. Years later, a new family moved into the house. They didn't know about its dark past or the evil spirits that lurked within its walls. Soon, they began to experience the same terrifying events that had driven the Perron family insane. The new family called the Warrens for help, and the paranormal investigators were shocked to discover that the spirits had only grown stronger in the decades since they last visited. But the Warrens weren't about to let these demons win. They performed a massive exorcism of the house, banishing the demons back to hell where they belonged. Finally, the house on Round Top Road was free of the ghosts, and the family could finally live in peace. So does this story really happen? Well, yes and no. While the basic premise of the film is rooted in reality, some details were changed for dramatic effect. For example, the Warrens did investigate a house in Rhode Island for paranormal activity, but it wasn't the Perron family who lived there. Rather, it was the Snedeker family. However, the family who lived in the house at the time, the Heenan family, claimed that the events described in the film were exaggerated and that many of them never even happened. They say that while there was some paranormal activity in the house, it wasn't nearly as intense as what was portrayed in the film. The family also claimed that the Warrens exploited their situation for financial gain and that they were never compensated for the investigation. Despite the controversy, though, the story of the haunting of the Arnold estate has become one of the most famous paranormal cases of all time, and it's easy to see why. The idea of a family being tormented by ghosts for years is terrifying, and the fact that the events allegedly took place in a real house that you can visit today makes it all the more creepy. If you're ever near Harassville, Rhode Island, be sure to check out the Arnold estate. Just be careful. You never know what you might encounter. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us out and lets us know what kind of videos you want to see more of. But that's it for now. Until next time, stay safe. Bye.